it means to be a carer. So the other message I'd really like to get across today, and we like to get across to carers, is that looking after yourself is a must. And I'm putting up this picture here of a hostie demonstrating the use of the oxygen mask. And would any of you carers like to tell me what this metaphor or what this symbolises in terms of self-care? Or let me ask you, Anne. Yes,
Yep.
go
I was
ahead,
going
Anne.
to say it means we have to look after ourselves first and foremost before we can look after anyone else.
Absolutely, exactly. Beautifully said. So the hostie will say, if you have a child or someone you're caring sitting next to you, don't put it on them first. You put the mask on yourself first in order to be able to be conscious and care for them. And that's an image we like to share with carers, because if you don't look after yourself, you're going to burn out and wear out. And then, the person that you care for, that's not going to be helpful for them. And you need to care for yourself for your, the journey ahead. Just a few other points about self-care in no particular order. I think it's important to make self-care a priority and not to consider it as something that is selfish. It's actually selfless and essential. The other thing is we encourage carers not to cancel your health checks. There's been studies that show that sometimes carers have worse health outcomes than the person they care for, and that's because they prioritise or don't prioritise themselves and cancel appointments when something else comes up. So please do keep up your health checks. And likewise, don't cancel your breaks or outings unless you absolutely have to. Write them in your calendar or your diary and make sure that you stick to them. They're not a not negotiable, they're an essential for you to have a mental break. And having a break doesn't have to be, you don't necessarily have to leave the house even to have a mental break. And it's important that you build these breaks into your daily life. Not on a weekly basis, but on a daily basis. And it could be something as simple as gardening, reading, watching something enjoyable like Netflix, taking your mind off issues and doing a crossword or Sudoku, making something, doing something creative, or meditating, or doing a guided meditation. There's lots of apps out there like Smiling Mind that you can use. So it's really important to build breaks in wherever possible throughout the day and give yourself something to look forward to. The other thing that might be helpful in terms of self-care is joining a carer support group where you can, have a shoulder to cry on, or someone to share a laugh with, or someone who really understands your situation. There's also counselling available for carers, which is free, and I'll tell you where to find that. So if you need support or you need coaching in how to go about something, see, a lot of people think a counsellor is someone you go to when you've really hit rock bottom, but that's not necessarily so. You can talk to a counsellor and get some practical strategies, if you've hit a bit of a roadblock. And the other thing is that we run lots of workshops online on self-care and other things. So if you'd like to join like-minded people and learn something, or learn how to look after yourself, have a look at our website on the events tab, and you'll be able to register for any workshops you find interesting and helpful. And I think to repeat to yourself in times of doubt, I'm doing the best I can. I think that's really important for carers to say to themselves. If they've got a little critical voice in the background saying you're not doing a great job and you should have done better and you could have managed that much better, you have to keep telling yourself, I'm doing the best I can. Okay. Any questions about that? All right. Because time's of the essence, I'll keep moving on. So I was asked to also talk about support services for carers, which I'll do in a minute, but just want to let you know that if you're not aware of this, there is actually a Carers Recognition Act of 2012 in Victorian law, and you might want to Google this if you don't know about it, but what it says is essentially that if you're a carer, you need to have your views and needs respected and acknowledged, and that you do have a right to have some input into the care of the care recipient, and that services that you deal with need to kind of acknowledge you in the whole scheme of things. And in fact, if they're funded by state government, that they actually have to report on how they do this. So just keep that in mind, because that's a bit of something you've got up your sleeve. Okay. In terms of what Carers Victoria provides, so we've undergone some changes in the last 12 months. So essentially, across Victoria or statewide, we provide these things here, which is policy and advocacy, not individual advocacy, but we advocate for carers as a group. We put on a whole range of education workshops and events, which you can access via our website. We also do lots of projects that look into carer issues, and we also provide a lot of information. There's a lot of information on our website that you can access, or you can call us. In the Western Metropolitan region, we also provide some more specific carer services, but our funding has changed, whereas we used to do this in a much wider area. We are only funded to do it in the Western Metro region now. So that's from Footscray to Melton. The other supports, this is some of the workshops that we run that you can register for. Everything from music and caring for yourself, creating boundaries with the person you care for and other people, communicating with families, how to communicate more effectively with professionals, and lots of stuff. We have them on every week. In fact, I think we have a workshop on every day. And you can book in by going to our website and going to that tab there, training and events. So do check it out. You can also stay connected with us by subscribing to our online monthly newsletter called The Voice, which basically tells you about what's happening in the carer space, what's coming up, what events are on, what's government doing, what are we doing to stick up for carers, and so on and so forth. We also have a Facebook site where there's lots of different videos posted and lots of information as well. On our website too, if you're not already receiving some Centrelink benefits or you want to find out a little bit more, we do have some information on all these different benefits for carers that I don't have the time to go through now, but everything from carer payment down to the carer Mieke card, which was introduced last year. Some of you may not have heard about this, but the Carer Gateway started last year, and it's kind of up and running now. And it's a national program for carers, just like NDIS and Medicare and aged care. Services for carers have been nationalised as well, and this is a federal government initiative. And I'll take you through basically what they offer very quickly. That's their number. That's their website or webpage, which you might like to go to and check out. And essentially, this is what they offer. They can offer you phone counselling, connecting with other carers, coaching, which is self-guided, and they also do skills courses, but they're not sort of face-to-face or via Zoom, they're online. The other thing they provide is emergency respite. So if you need some emergency respite and you don't have any other options, no other services available, you can ring the Carer Gateway at any time, and they may be able to, well, hopefully they'll be able to help you in that instance. I see a few people are writing down that number, which is great. The other thing that exists in Victoria, so it's state government funded, is something called Support for Carers program. And basically, this is run by local services in your area. They're different in each kind of area of Victoria. And I'll tell you who your services out there in the east are. But basically, they have funding available to offer a range of things, including respite, some practical support in the home, things to support your health and well-being, equipment and aids, transport, peer support, counselling, advice and information. So every service may not provide all of these things, but the funding is fairly flexible. So if you need something and you think, oh, that's a bit out of the box, or I'm not sure that they're going to help me, no, anyone can help me with that, it is worth asking the question, because you might find that because the funding is flexible, they may be able to help you out in this instance. And the services out in the east that you can contact, so your gateway provider is Uniting Care. They'll provide the carer gateway services. And for the Victorian Support for Carers program I was just speaking about, it's also Uniting, Southern Migrant and Refugee Centre, and Villa Maria Catholic Homes. So you might want to jump on their websites or call them up and ask them what support are they offering carers.
Tania, if someone has an aged care package, can they still use these services?
So these services are for you, the carer, Tracy. I'm assuming you're a carer.
I'm actually a care advisor. My mum is online who is a carer.
Okay.
But I'm just wondering, if someone is on an aged care package, can they still have support from these people?
Yes, so the assessment is based on the carer, not the client as such. So you as the carer, Tracy, or a carer of someone can go to these people and ask for support, and it doesn't matter. Yeah. But I can't speak about eligibility for every single thing. I've just got an overview. But generally, it's because it's support for the carer, it's not linked into the support the client is receiving.
Yes, okay. Thanks.
They should be eligible. And that brings me to the end of my presentation. I hope I didn't go through that quickly, but I am mindful of time. Lynn, would you
keep it very personalised? We have trained, obviously qualified staff. We're not a clinical service, that is, we don't prescribe meds and things like that, but we obviously have people who come to us with quite complex medical needs. So we do have to have clinical staff. We have our nurses, we have our PCAs, our personal care assistants. But we also use trained volunteers, and we've developed a training course so that they are prepared for whatever volunteer role they come into in Fernlea. And when we're talking day respite, we have our guest services volunteers and our Reiki practitioners and Reiki masters. So because we use a mix of staff and volunteers, we're often able to deliver almost one-on-one care and really focus on the person and the people that are with us on that day. Another element that makes us person-centred is that we build a relationship with our clients in home and our guests in day respite. We're not transactional care, and again, you would have read about some of those stories in, especially, I guess, residential aged care, where there's one PCA who has to, shower, dress and feed, 20 people within an hour. And they often talk about not being able to develop a relationship because it's just so transactional. They just need to get the job done. We're not like that. We do really focus, as I say, on the person that we're working with. We try to match staff member to the needs and the preferences of the client, and this is especially relevant to in-home care, where we have clients who come to us and they have particular needs. We have some younger, we have a younger male client, and he particularly wanted a male carer, and so we sent, 2 or 3 people to the home so that he could choose the carer that suited him. And we try to do that. We need that client to be happy, and so we will go to that extra length, I guess. We also try to maintain continuity of carers. So, for example, if someone is in day respite and they have a staff member or someone there who they particularly like, we can oftentimes have that same carer look after them if they move into in-home services as well. So we try to keep that continuity of carer going. And we also look after the carer, and I'll talk more about that, and obviously Pamela will talk about that. But we do that because while our focus is on the person that comes to us with the condition, with dementia, cancer or whatever, we know that if the carer isn't travelling well, then no one's travelling well. So that's a really important foundational piece of work that we do. As well as being person-centred, our model of care is holistic. So we don't focus on the person's illness. In fact, often we won't even talk to them about their illness. Our focus is on them as a whole person, and improving their quality of life. And we do that through various things. So we obviously have activities, and there's a mix of group activities and individual activities that are... Can everyone hear me okay?
You're fine, Sue.
Okay. Right, I'm just trying to go on. I don't know, I tried my phone and then I tried my 5G and nothing seems to work. So we look at the whole person, and we do this through a couple of ways. We provide complementary services like Reiki and massage, and we have a professional chef who really understands the importance of food and how food is presented and its nutritional value. And that's especially important for older people and in relation to memory. We've had lots of feedback from our guests in day respite who talk about what food has meant for them and how food that we've presented has reminded them of their childhood and what their mum used to cook for them. And so we see sort of the living proof of that. And also the value of sharing a meal with other people. So we eat communally in day respite, and that's a really important factor, especially for people who live on their own. So that's sort of the holistic side of our model of care. We try to be as flexible as we can. We know that when you have a life-limiting illness, that there are days when you're just not going to be able to come into the day respite centre or to have a carer come in to home. And so we don't have any lock-in fees. In day respite, if you can't come along, you're not charged for the day. And in in-home care, you can stop and start services when you need to, and there won't be any financial penalty for that. And that's in recognition of the fact that, yes, I think people are quite widely financially disadvantaged when they're not well, and I guess we don't want to add to that. So that's the business model that we have chosen, is not to charge those lock-in fees. And finally, in relation to our model of care, we are a grassroots organisation. We are immersed in our local communities in which we work. Our volunteers come from those local communities. We are supported by and we support other community organisations. So Rotary supports us, Men's Shed, U3A. We've been invited this year to be part of our local Christmas Carols event, which will be a virtual event. And in Berwick, we have a relationship with St John of God. So our organisation isn't just a commercial entity. In fact, we're not commercial at all in terms of day respite, but we want to be an integral part of our local communities, and that's really important. And that's why we find that word of mouth, because of that local community work we do, is really important in people reaching out to us. In relation to our current services, well, I think a lot of you know already about some of those. So this model of care, we live that and deliver it through our services. So day respite is, I guess we'd call it our flagship service. It's the service we first started out with, and day respite has many benefits for the guest. And the guest is what we call the person who comes to our day respite service, because we do look at them as guests in our own home. But our service also has many benefits for the carer, and that was the original intention of the day respite funding, that it is a service aimed at giving the carer a break. We know from research, I know Grattan Institute did a set of research some years ago, that a large number of people say they want to age and to die at home. I think the numbers were mid-70s, 70 to 80% of people who've said that would be their wish. But the reality is that less than 20%, in fact, I think significantly less than 20%, actually get to do that. They end up having to go into something like aged care, to a residential service. So the government's response to this wish of people to age and die at home was to provide home care packages, so that there is an alternative to going into residential aged care. You can purchase in services to bring the care into your own home while you're able to do that. And the second thing they did was to provide funding called CHSP, so Commonwealth Home Support Program funding, to community services like us, like Fernlea's centre-based day respite. And so community services like us out in the community, not just in home care, are really important because they work hand in hand with home care. They're an adjunct service, and what they provide, so people will often have purchase in-home care into their own home, but they'll choose to, for their loved one, to go to a centre like ours a day a week or something like that. And that's so that we can provide a different but a safe environment for that guest away from their home. So it's a bit of variety for them. It also provides the carer with a real break. So it can be a time, as Tania says, that they just do nothing. They just, have some time to themselves, and they just sit there and stare at the walls. They may read, they may whatever, or they can take that time to run errands and appointments. But moving, that offer of service outside of the home while you're choosing to do home care is really important as an alternative and as a support to home care. Our day respite services are in Emerald and in Berwick, and we do hope to have some exciting news soon about a potential expansion, but we will let you know more about that when we've sort of tied all that up. In 2015-16, our funding from the government, so our CHSP, our day respite, is funded by the government in part. That changed from coming from the Department of Health to coming from through as aged care funding, and that made two changes. That meant that the person with the condition, so the person, for example, who has dementia, is now the client, whereas before the carer was the client. But we made a decision that despite that, and despite the fact that, our funding could no longer be used to provide carer support services, we took a decision that we would continue to support and focus on the carer. And as I said, Pamela will talk more about that in a minute. And our funding, because it's aged care funding, we can only use it to provide services for people over 65. But the reality is that we have a significant number of our clients over time, our guests in day respite, are under 65, and we need to be able to provide services for them. So we had to charge full recovery costs, right? The fees would be, so yes, we really want to be able to provide that service still for younger people under 65. So that meant that we had to then develop some income streams for ourselves. And one of those income streams that we developed some years ago now was our in-home care service. So that is not a government funded service. That is a commercial business that we have set up. We prefer to call it, though, a social enterprise, because while it is intended to generate us income, we plough every cent back into Fernlea so that we can continue to provide services at a reasonable fee to younger people. And that's we run our in-home care on a similar model to our day respite, in that we train our staff really well. We're very particular about the PCAs that we take on, because we acknowledge that our PCAs are working in-home and not in the day respite centre where they have lots of support around them from our nurse manager. We need really mature, experienced professional PCAs working in-home so that they can have good judgment, they can provide the best level of care. So we're really proud of our in-home care service and our model of care that we deliver through that. We do have an opportunity at the moment. So a couple of years ago, we were able to secure some state government funding through DHHS. And what I did was I put aside some of that money to provide an in-home care subsidy. So that means that, and obviously being state government money, there are some conditions attached to it, but basically if you or someone you are looking after and caring for has a palliative illness, and you don't have a home care package yet, then you can approach us and we can provide in-home care at a highly subsidised rate. In-home care, if you don't go through a funded service, is very expensive. You pay normal commercial rates of around about, $50 an hour or something like that. But we do have some state money. It's only available until the end of this financial year, so to end of June next year. But we wanted to let our carers know about that, so that if that is you or someone you know about, then please talk to our nurse manager and we would definitely be happy to consider that. So, as I said, the conditions are that the person has to have a palliative illness because it's palliative funding, and they not have a home care package. So it may be that you haven't applied for a home care package yet, or maybe you have applied and the money hasn't come through. And from what we read in the media, we know that it can be up to a 2-year wait from when you're assessed until when the money comes through. So if that is you, or if you're just not sure, please talk to our nurse manager, and we would definitely like to get that money out into the community to support people in their role as carer. I was really pleased to see Tania in her talk about carer support groups, and we have been working over the last year or so to develop a carer support group. That is funded by the state funding money that we got, the grant. It's ready to go. We've spent a lot of time developing it and the principles around it and doing research to see what was needed, including surveying carers. And that is absolutely ready to go. We've got the premises. We just need to get out of this COVID-19 situation so that we can actually open. But that will be a group, it'll be a facilitated group, but the aim is that the carers themselves will own that group and say what they need from the group. Eventually they can run it themselves if that's what they choose to do. Or so it'll, as I say, be very much owned by the carers, but this is another one of the continuum of services that we want to provide for our guests and our clients and their carers. The second future service we have, it's not actually a service, it's probably more of a resource. It is a book that we will be writing or will have written for us. It's called, its working title is The Last Taboo, A Practical Guide to Dying. Now, it may not end up staying that title. We have put it out to tender for authors to give us their take on what the book could look like, and we're currently shortlisting those authors. It'll be a resource for people to do end-of-life planning. So from that point of view, it'll be a really practical guide for, you know, what happens to my car, what are my options for a funeral, what about insurances, a whole range of things. So it'll be a practical guide, and that will be available around June 2021, so the end of this financial year. The third future service that we are in the process and a long way through developing is a volunteer home visiting program. And that will have a couple of purposes. Firstly, we are developing a training program to train volunteers to go into people's homes to provide respite in those last few weeks or days of life. So it's to provide the care with respite, but it's also to help them, I guess, come to terms, if they haven't already, with what is happening. And so that's why the training will be specifically aimed at and why it will be important. And so those volunteers, and they'll only do that, obviously they'll do that in a really sensitive way, and that won't be forced on carers. If all they want is respite, that will be absolutely fine. But if the volunteer detects that the carer and the family need other supports, that's what we will bring in, if that's what the carer wants. So we will... the carer may want to use the Last Taboo book to do some end-of-life planning. And they may also want to take advantage of the fourth new service that we're looking at offering. Again, it's probably more of a resource, and that will be a memoirs program. And the memoirs program will be, it'll be delivered by volunteers who have done specific training, but it will take the people with the life-living illness through the process of developing a memoir of their choosing to leave as a legacy. We're still developing that program, but the way we're looking at it is that it can offer a range of memoir options depending on the person's interests and their choice, including they may want to put together a photo album, they may want to make a video, they might want to write a letter to their family or a family member. They might want to do a painting or a drawing, write a poem, or develop a memoir based on their life or an event or something like that. Or they may want to write the eulogy. So there will be a range of things on offer, but I guess it's a way of helping people on that end-of-life journey. So that is that's the range of services that we offer now and that we're planning to offer into the future. Absolutely happy. I can answer any questions now, but we could leave it to Q&A at the end. But I hope that's really given you a snapshot of Fernlea, for those of you that don't know Fernlea so well at the moment, but also the sorts of services that we can provide you.
Thanks very much, Sue. Lots of good information out there for carers. So jump online. We put regular posts up on our website and also through our social pages. So we do try and keep people up to date with what we're doing at Fernlea. But there is, you can see there's some great information and resources out there. I'd like to pass over to Pamela. So Pamela is our head nurse at Fernlea Community Care in Emerald, and Pamela's just going to share the importance of carers' plans. And these are something we do in addition to our guest plans. So Pamela's going to take you through that, and I think we're then going to hear from Libby and Marianne and Marcus some carer stories. So thank you, Pamela.
Thank you very much, team. I'm going to make this brief because I can see we're going to well and truly run over time. I think Sue has covered off most of the reasoning, and even in Tania Daniels' précis earlier, where she had the PowerPoint presentation about the very, very important people that are the carers. You guys are actually like an ambassador for us, because if we don't look after you, then we won't hear good things down the line. And I know that a lot of our work, as Sue pointed out, to match our workers with the people that need assistance. I know that the lovely Damien's on the screen there, and I know Damien visits a lot of our people as a PCA, and also we get a lot of assistance and help from people that, like Anne, who's on screen, one of our Reiki masters. Give us a wave, Anne. We also offer, when people bring their loved one in, for instance, if their loved one doesn't actually have some Reiki, sometimes the carer will. So for us to do a care plan is really, really important. Our care plans don't just ask the standard questions, but we'll also direct people to other groups. Say, for instance, Tania Daniels, the Victorian Carers groups. We'll direct them to hubs at shopping precincts that run things like out of Cardinia. We'll also direct people to Alfred Health Carers group. Pretty soon, as Sue says, we'll have our own carers group, and so we will be able to keep a lot of our people closer to us. But we see it as a really significant and important part of our work to do that holistic care and to look after the carers. So I don't want to talk any further and cover ground that others have covered, just to say it's delightful to see so many people respond today to this Zoom meeting. And I'm just wondering, Libby Goy, if you wouldn't mind to be able to say to us a few things about your interaction with us. We had Libby's lovely husband, John, with us for quite some time. And then we'll ask Marianne if she'd like to speak about her lovely husband, Lloyd, who was with us for some time as well. So if Libby Goy can be unmuted, the floor is yours, lovely Libby.
Thanks, Pamela. I was very glad to find Fernlea. I found it really hard getting help with my husband, who had Parkinson's and dementia with Lewy bodies. I spent ages on the phone trying to get help. I didn't know about Carers Victoria. So when I found out about Fernlea through Marianne, actually. We were at a aerobics class and she was talking about this wonderful place that she was taking her husband. And she still is part-time working, so she needed help. I had a lot of good help from my family. But Fernlea was the best place. I guess it took me probably 6 to 12, maybe not 12 months, but certainly a long time to find help. And when I did, it was really fantastic and a great relief to find somewhere where John was happy to go to and not think, oh, he's amongst all these old people, because all your staff were a mixture of ages, which is, I think, important. He loved the food and he loved everyone there, and it was a great help for me. And I was very sorry when his dementia got on top of him and he ended up in hospital and then had to go to residential care. And I always sort of hoped that one day Fernlea would open up as residential care. I had spent ages looking for respite. It took me ages, but when I did, I was very pleased, and Fernlea was a great help for me.
Thank you very much, Libby. Wondering, Marianne, if you'd like to unmute and give us a little bit of a précis of your experience with Lloyd, please.
Yeah, I too was very grateful to Fernlea, and just happened to notice that when I was working at St John of God in Berwick years ago, I noticed their little group there, and made some inquiries, and can still remember the day Pamela came to our home and spoke to us. And Lloyd just received just loving care and developed friendships at Fernlea that just made a big difference to his life. And he also had Lewy bodies with dementia, but it wasn't all that severe, and he was really quite mobile. And he just loved getting there and sitting down and waiting for the car to arrive, and then the journey in the car, and getting there and sitting down and being fussed over, and having the meal and coming home in the afternoon and the evening, and he described the meal and, you know, the things they did at Fernlea and the outings they went on. And, you know, if it was a day where they were going somewhere, he'd want to dress up a bit more carefully. But it really did give his last few years a lot of purpose and reason to get up in the mornings. And when the Christmas breaks came, he'd, you know, ask if he was going to Fernlea that day, and I'd say, no, you've got to stay home with me. And I could see he was clearly disappointed. He got much more out of a day at Fernlea than a day at home. And the volunteers were just priceless to us and to our family. And they settled Lloyd at home because I usually wasn't there when he came home. And, you know, look after the dog and, you know, speak to my granddaughter when we were there. So it was all a very sort of harmonious affair. You know, everybody sort of respected everybody else, and there was a great appreciation from all our family. And it was very sad when Lloyd couldn't go there any longer. But he died in February this year, and it was about 2 months after his last visit to Fernlea. And, you know, I clearly think that, you know, it made a massive difference to his life to have had the experience there. And we will be eternally grateful to you all. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Marianne and Libby. It's always a pleasure to hear firsthand from people that are involved with Fernlea. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Okay, Lynn, thank you.
Yes, thanks very much, Libby and Marianne and Pamela. That was very, very, very lovely to listen to and to hear. We have got the time. We're at 12 o'clock, and I would like to open up to Q&A. We do have a short video that was put together by another Div 1 nurse out of Wantirna Health, which talks about plans for over 75s. We have recorded the session, and I'm hoping that is okay with everyone. We've done that really so we can share it with the participants who have come along today, and to also share with carers who use our services. So I will include the video that has been put together by Mieke on the over 75s. But I thought I would like to open it now just for some Q&A. If anyone's got any questions they'd like to ask. I know I did pop one in there, and I guess it is to our carers. It's really interesting to know what carers are looking for from a service provider, and what are the critical things, because we're always trying to improve our care and our service, and it would be just good to know, how you make those decisions. Is it the connections with the people? Is it the trust? Is it the location? Maybe it's all of those things, but it would be interesting to hear how you make your decision. Anyone got any feedback on that or answers? I think we need to unmute. Oh, yes, Ben?
Yeah. I've had very little experience with you, of course, because of the COVID up at Emerald, but that certainly was an attraction to be able to go up to a nice country place, and also to tell my husband that he was going out for lunch, and he was very pleased to do that, and that really got him going into getting up there. I think we only went twice. Because that was in the middle of the year. He was assessed after a stint in St John of God for falling over again, and so yes, we only sort of started on this journey in March. So we have also been fortunate to have Damien coming in on Wednesday mornings, and he's been able to keep Michael a little bit busier. But what we're looking for is what you've got, basically, excepting that I really would like to know if anyone knows of any cottage homes or anything like that someone could stay for a few days if I want to go up the country, which is where I want to go. Won't be able to go for a while, so it's not terribly urgent, but yes, that's the only other thing I really need to find out at the moment. That's it.
Any other questions from anyone? Information?
I know of a. Can I just pop in here?
Yes, Libby.
Yeah, I know of a respite place. That it's Villa Maria Homes in Listerfield. That's it, Listerfield, and they do short-term respite. And they were very nice. I went up there one stage looking for respite for John for, say, some overnights. But that never happened because he couldn't have handled that. But they were very nice up there, and they have sort of, I think it's probably 2 weeks respite. And it's all...
You can have overnight there too, Jen. It's Carigno, isn't it, Libby? Overnight stays as well.
Carigno.
Oh, okay.
In Listerfield, it's Villa.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm also familiar with Carigno. I think one of our other guests that used to come here used to use Carigno. Perhaps off camera we can put Libby and Jen in contact with each other, or I can fax to you some details or email you or something, Jen, because I am aware of Carigno in Listerfield.
Yes. Is that is that a more of a country type place or anything, or is it just a suburban house? Or
No.
Yes, it's custom built, isn't it? And it's it sort of is in the country in Listerfield, but it is semi-suburban, really. Yeah.
Just wondering. I mean, we're fairly suburban here too.
Yes. Yeah.
Lloyd spent quite a couple of sessions up at Carigno for 2 or 3 nights at a time, and it was very good. They only take 4 or 5 people at once, and he was well looked after and liked that place.
Yeah.
It's quite good, and it's not expensive.
Thanks very much.
Hello everyone, my name is Mieke and I'm a registered Division 1 nurse working in a local general medical practice, where my main role is to conduct the nursing part of the over 75-year-old health assessments that we offer at our clinic. I have got some notes here because I'm not used to doing this, and I do want to make sure that I give all the relevant information, so please bear with me. I've been asked as part of Carers Week to give you an idea of what happens at these over 75-year-old health assessments and how it may be relevant to carers if you are a carer. Our clinic offers the over 75-year-old health assessments, but some clinics don't. It depends on whether they have got the resources and whether they are able to do it. It's of two parts. The first part is a nursing part, so that's where I come in, and I see the patient for about 40 minutes. In some places it's longer and they do a bit more assessing, but this is what I do in my practice and that's what I will talk about. And then the patient will see me for about 40 minutes and then see their GP that they usually go to for about the same amount of time, sometimes shorter, sometimes longer. So the first thing I'll talk about is that this over 75-year-old assessments are one of the federal government strategies to support people to keep them in their homes as safely as possible for as long as possible. And we know that that is one of their main objectives in dealing with people over 75. It's an annual assessment, and first one will be at 75, and then every year after that you are able to have the assessment again, and the government covers all that. It pays for all of that, whether you're a pensioner or whether you aren't, as I said, as part of their strategy. So the idea is that you will come along for your first one when you're 75. You'll get a letter or some invitation, and you come along, and then we will start the assessment. The first thing to say is that it's not a test. It is basically a health and well-being checkup, really, I suppose you could say, to the nurse, and to talk about general things in your health and well-being, and if there's anything that usually we don't cover. And a lot of people say to me, oh, well, I'm at the doctor's all the time, which is sometimes true as we get older, but it's not for the same assessment. This one is a more general overall assessment that we can pick things up that you might forget to tell the doctor when you go. Also, we talk about supports. So if things are not as good as they used to be, or things, for instance, your mobility is going down, or you may need more help, you may not be able to vacuum anymore, or you may not be able to do the garden, then I can give you some supports that are available. For instance, My Age Care. Not everyone knows about My Age Care, and that you can get support from My Age Care. They do the home care packages, and I do have information on that, and there is lots of things that they can help you with. It's always tailored to you. Once you get the funding, it can take a while for it to come in, but I always encourage everyone to at least register with My Age Care when they are over 65, and hopefully you may not need it, but if you do, then you can just ring them up, and they will usually either send someone out or talk on the phone, and if circumstances change, then your package can change. I also, if for instance, also the basic testing, some places always do all the testing, but we just do basic testing, which is all you really can do in this assessment. And that's, for instance, like a memory test if you feel you need one, or and the eye test. If the doctor then thinks, and after discussing with you, that you may need further investigations, then they will either refer you. They may want to do a care plan with you, but that would be another visit. So it's just to get these things started, just very basic. And this is why this assessment is so good, because it picks them up. So yeah, as I said, every place is different. The medications. So that's basically all I wanted to cover with that. In regard to carers, I think that it's very important that carers take time out for themselves too, and to check on their health and well-being. one of the questions actually on the assessment is, are you a carer? And if you are a carer, then we will sometimes discuss, well, how's it going? You know, are there things that we can help you with? Are there things that are worrying you? And as a carer, if you do, please, when you get your invite, make the time to do this for yourself as well as for the person that you're caring for. Because if we can prevent things that, you know, may happen further down the track, or of course, most important, give you the support that you need. I hope this has been of some interest for you, and thank you for listening, and goodbye now.